All right?
Thank you.
Now, how did you first become aware of Detective Superintendent Brotherton's letter? It wasn't addressed to you, was it?
No.
Well, then you must have come across it in some other way.
Well, I had just been dismissed from a temporary position I'd been given at the John Ford House Comprehensive School. The headmistress, Mrs. Bentley, wasn't very clear about her reasons, or so it seemed to me. Something to do with my teaching method, she said. But this wasn't the first time that I had failed to secure a teaching position recently. A friend had told me that sometimes if you've been in trouble, the police notify your employers, and that worried me. So I went back to Mrs. Bentley's office when everyone had gone home and hunted through the files.
Was the cabinet left unlocked, Miss?
Oh, yes, the whole office was. I know that was wrong of me, but I had to find out. And there was a letter saying all those things about me, and signed by Detective Superintendent Brotherton.
And what was the immediate effect of this on you, Miss Lord?
I was dazed then and the next day. I hadn't really believed what my friend had told me. I didn't think that the police acted like that, behind your back. Oh, then I went to see Dr. Transon, because I had an appointment with him anyway. And he seemed shocked at my condition. He gave me something to help me to sleep. But I couldn't stop feeling upset. I am a teacher, you see. I've always been a teacher. And it seemed to me that people were continually trying to stop me being a teacher. I had very little money left. I had no job. So I decided to go and have it out with Detective Superintendent Brotherton.
Why did you go to Calderley Police Station to find him, though? You must have known he wouldn't have been there.
Yes, I'm not sure.
And Constable Forbush had told you that he wasn't stationed there. Not once, but several times.
Oh, yes, that's true.
But still you demanded to see him.
Well,
Miss Lord, didn't it get through to you that you were in the wrong place?
I think I'd become upset by then.
Yes, I expect you had. Very upset. In a disturbed state of mind, would you say?
Well...
Miss Lord, were you thinking at all clearly on May 16th when you visited Calderley Police Station?
No, I wasn't. I was numb. Uncertain of everything.
You weren't at all sure what you were doing. Would that be a true statement of affairs?
Yes, it would.
Or what you might do?
You see, it is so difficult to describe. Everything was confused. It wasn't making sense.
All right. So. Now, this letter from Detective Superintendent Brotherton containing the allegations that you've spoken of. Now, would you tell the court, please, were these allegations true?
Matthew. Matthew Parks is a very attractive little boy.
A little louder, please, Miss Lord.
Sometimes it's almost unbearable working among young children when all you can think of is that you have none of your own. But I can honestly say I meant no harm to anyone. No, it was just to have Matthew in my home for an hour or so. I fully intended to return him to his parents, you know. I did.
That's all for now, Miss Lord. Thank you very much.
I'm sorry if this is painful to you, Miss Lord, but there are one or two matters I really must pursue. When you discovered that letter in Mrs. Bentley's office, after rifling through her private files, you must have thought two things. First, that the police were operating against you, and second, that they had a perfect right to.
No.
Oh, you didn't think they were operating against you?
Yes.
You didn't think they had a perfect right to?
Well, no, of course not. What right? I'd done nothing wrong.
But you've just admitted to us here in this court that you had.
But there was no charge.
The act was committed.
I've tried to explain that. I harmed no one. It was just to have Matthew for an hour or so.
Miss Lord, the crime of abduction
Of course
is
the
in
police
no
had
way
no
lessened
right.
by the amount of hours
But to
it
hound
takes.
me like that.
Hours?
Again and again.
Days?
It was
weeks?
4 times in 1
law,
year.
it amounts to the same thing.
Is that fair?
Abduction, Miss Lord.
Well, does anybody
Abduction.
think that's fair?
Abduction!
I did not abduct Matthew Parks.
You merely took him home with you without his parents' consent.
Yes,
And retained him.
but not for very long.
Long enough to distress them gravely. And in the meantime, when
Why
your master
won't you
phoned you for
listen?
information, you denied any knowledge of the boy's disappearance. Well, didn't you? It's all here in his testimony, uncontroverted, conveniently overlooked by my learned friend. I put it to you, Miss Lord, that someone has the obligation to supply information about you when you try for a job with children. You're a dangerous woman.
Your Honour, I must object. That's pure comment.
It is, Mr. Dealey, but it must stand. The comment is completely irrelevant.
You walked out of Mrs. Bentley's office that night, after going through her files, convinced that the police were out to destroy you, didn't you? And burning with hatred for them as a result.
No.
Well, you've practically said as much. I am a teacher. I've always been a teacher, and it seemed to me people were continually trying to stop me from being a teacher. And again, the police had no right to hound me like that. Weren't you suddenly anxious for revenge, Miss Lord? Didn't you desperately want to hit out?
No.
But in the event you did, with that cold chisel, at an unfortunate duty constable who, by your own admission, was simply being polite and concerned to help. Not really the sort of behavior to be explained away by a disturbed state of mind or condition of automatism. There was intent in the act. Deliberation. You hit the police, anybody in the police, because it was the police you wanted to hit.
No.
That is the truth, isn't it, Miss Lord?
Constable, I do ask you to believe I was not myself. I
Your Honour,
didn't.
no matters arising.
Then you will return to the dock, Miss Lord.